Hello and welcome to this Edexcel GCSE Geography Walking Talking Mock on global development, and this is the first part, designed to help you improve your confidence in reading and answering the questions so you can give the best possible answers. As always, please, if you've not seen these videos before, please pause the screen now and read through the instructions so you can make the best use of this video. So when we look at this section, section B, global development, it is important that you read all of the instructions, and if you've seen these videos before, you'll know all about how to mark an X in the box for the multiple choice questions. So don't circle them, don't tick them, follow the instructions, otherwise you will lose simple marks. The characteristics and reasons for development vary around the world. Study figure 2A in the resource booklet. So before we start to look at the questions, let's look at the resource booklet, and we can see we have a table which shows us the changes in gross domestic product for different countries, and we can see here the differences between 2000 and 2014. So if we look at countries like Austria, it's increased, so we can see that majority of these have all increased, some of them by a large amount, either by percentages or by a total amount. So the USA gone up by 7.4, whereas some have only gone up much smaller, like Japan have only gone up by 0.1. So let's have a look at the questions. Define the term GDP, gross domestic product. It's only worth 1 mark. If it's defined, you've got to state what it means. But be careful. A common error on things like this is to think of, well, gross domestic product per capita. And it's not. Read the instructions carefully and know your key terms. So pause the video and have a quick go. 1 minute now. Next up, we've got a multiple choice. Calculate the percentage increase in GDP for India between 2000 and 2014. So we're looking for a percentage increase in GDP. This means that we have to do a little bit of simple maths here. So we take what is the overall increase. So the increase that there's been in these 14 years, then divide that by the original number. So if we look at the figures in India, it was 2000, it's now 2.0. So the increase is 1.5, that's the increase, and the original is 0.5. So we divide the increase by the original, and that will give us our percentage increase. So write your answer down now, 1 mark, very quick. The next question is calculate the mean GDP for the countries on figure 2A in 2014. Answer to 1 decimal place. This is vital. You must give your answer rounded up correctly to 1 decimal place. And it's worth 2 marks, and it says show your workings in the space below. So we know that to create a mean of a value, we have to add up all of the values in that column and then divide them by the number of those values. So here we would look at 2014, making sure we've got the right data set, add them all up and then divide them by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So add them up, divide them by 7. And you could just have total GDP equals divided by number 7, and then write your answer, but make sure you round it. So if we look at the answers for those first few, GDP is the total wealth or income earned by country. Do not put per person because it hasn't got the term per capita in there. The answer is 300%. 1.5 divided by 0.5 is 3, so 300%. And then the answer would be 5.3. It has to be 5.3. If you give more decimal points or you've rounded it incorrectly, you would not get the points. So be very careful on that. So state 2 components that form part of the Human Development Index. State Very simple, don't need to develop or explain them. You just need to say what are the features, what are the things that go in when we're looking or measuring human development index, and 2 of those, and you've got to be precise on these to get the marks. So have a go, 2 marks, 2 minutes, have a think, off you go now. So now the next one, study figure 2b in the resource booklet. So before we look at the question, let's have a look at it. What can we see? And we can see that what we have is the Akosombo Dam, a big development project in Ghana. Now we can see this is a major dam. When we're talking about development projects, we want to be thinking about the 2 main types, either top down, which are large scale, government funded, governments may go into debt, have to borrow some money, and although they can benefit the country as a whole, they may damage local environments and local people. So if we go back, let's have a look at the question. The following statements describe different types of development project. Identify the 2 statements which describe the type of project shown in figure 2b. Now it's important, you only have to identify, but you have to give 2 statements. It's worth 2 marks, so you've got to give 2 different answers here. Make sure you read it. Okay? And if you're not sure, then try and see which ones you can rule out. For example, local people are responsible for designing the project, but do you think local people would have the skills to design a big dam on that scale? So that one would probably be not. So then that limits your choices down again. So have a go at that now. Now, the next question, top-down projects are often controversial. Explain 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage of top-down development projects in the promotion of development. It's explain, give reasons. Make sure you give 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage of the top-down. So you've got to know what a top-down development project is, and you've got to know the advantages and disadvantages. State the feature of it, and then why that makes it a good thing or a bad thing. So have a go at that now. To go through the answers then, the correct answers were C and E for the top-down, for the dam photograph. Those were the 2 main features of it. And if we look at what the advantages and disadvantages were for it, we could see that again 1 mark for identifying a relevant advantage and then 1 mark for explaining it. Okay, so large-scale government investment and support will have the potential to affect a large number of people, which is one of the things we said looking at the photo. So you can see you've got a whole range of different ideas that you could have given. There are other responses, but you get 1 mark for an improvement and 1 mark for sort of explaining that and why that's going to be a good thing. And of course you thought I'd forgotten what HDI is, so just coming back to that, we can see it's income per capita, or gross national income per capita. It's important that you get that right. If you just put GDP, that wouldn't be correct. It has to be gross national income per person. Life expectancy, and it would be mean years of education, not literacy rates or anything like that. You have to give the specific information that's required there. So know your terms, know what goes into your HDI from your key term sheets. So 1 form of information that could be used to investigate the impact of top-down projects is websites. Describe 1 technique that could be chosen to process this information. So this is quite a difficult one when you first look at it. So describe, just state 1 technique, 1 thing that you could do to try and summarize or present that information. Okay, so think about it. If you've got a lot of written words, how could you present that? So have a go at that now. 2 marks, 2 minutes, off you go. And again, although it looks a horrible question, the answer is quite simple. It might be things like a Wordle or a tool that could be used to analyze the text to see the words that are most frequently in there. Or it could be, you could code the text into positive and negative statements and then count the number of statements that you've used. So really quite simple for the answers you need to give there. It's nothing too difficult at all. Now this is where it becomes really important to look at all of the information on the exam paper. Here we can see we've got a scatter graph, and if we scroll up from figure A, we can see that this scatter graph shows us the relationship between life expectancy and access to safe drinking water. We can see we've got the percentage of people with access to water at the bottom and life expectancy up there. And if we look at this, we can see there is a slight positive correlation going up. Now, reading the information, it says here, plot the data for Cambodia and Mozambique. So you've got the information, make sure it's 2 marks. It's really simple. You just have to mark them onto the graph. It is so simple, but make sure you use the correct axes to plot this data on. Okay, too many people lose marks because they see this and think it's just something to talk about rather than something to do with. Okay, so make sure you read all of the information. Next, draw a best fit line on figure A. So what we need to do, a best fit line, thinking of our math skills, it's trying to draw a line which will have an equal number of points on either side, but shows the correlation. So you could draw a line from here to here, but that would be incorrect. So what you're looking at is showing the overall trend, which is as access to water increases, so does life expectancy. And then next, give one reason for the relationship shown in figure A. Well, the relationship is as safe water increases, so does life expectancy. So just give one reason. It's only worth 1 mark, so it's a very quick answer. So the answer is very simply, you get 1 mark for each correct plot, and then drawing a best fit line which shows that life expectancy increases. So as long as your best fit line shows a positive correlation, then you would get the mark. Then, very simple reasons, people drinking safe water don't get diseases. Okay, or building or wells or irrigation may improve basic living standards, which will improve life expectancy. So very simple answers expected there. So for a named developing or emerging country, explain 2 reasons the population structure has changed in the last 30 years. So a named developing or emerging countries. Now obviously India is the main one that we studied, but you could use any country that you have information or knowledge about. Now it's worth 4 marks. And you've got to explain. So give reasons, extend them, think of the connectives. This means that, this leads to, and give 2 separate ones to show how or explain why the population structure has changed. The first thing you need to say is what has happened to the population structure. So in the population structure of India, what have we noticed? Well, we know that things have improved there in terms of healthcare and education. So you might be wanting to talk about life expectancy. You could talk about the numbers of older or younger people and how those numbers have changed and for what reasons there are. So it's 4 marks. Takes you about 4 minutes, 2 different reasons, give 1 point of how it's changed and then a reason for that change. So 4 minutes, have a go now. So let's have a look at the answers to this, and you can see it's point mark. It's really quite straightforward and simple. So it may be that birth rate has decreased. We know that in India the number of babies being born relative to the rest of the population is reduced, and narrowing of the population pyramid may be down to contraception. Life expectancy is increasing because there is better healthcare, better education, better food supplies, etc. So you can have many different reasons, but you can see here you've got to state what has the change been and why is that the case. So this is the end of part 1. Part 2 we'll look at the longer 8 mark question. Thanks for watching. I hope it's been useful. See you soon. Bye.